Through the first half of the 2020-21 NBA season, 76ers starting center and superstar Joel Embiid really seemed like he was the closest thing you could be to a unanimous MVP in the eyes of fans, but when he suffered a hyperextended knee on March 12th in Washington during the Sixers game against the Wizards, it seemed his chances at being the first MVP since Shaquille O'Neal would sadly be ruined, and the 76ers would fall out of the first seed in the Eastern Conference that they've held onto all season. However, that hasn't seemed to be the case, as the 76ers really haven't seemed to be much different ever since Embiid's injury, and you can argue that they've built more chemistry and played better ever since Embiid went down. What's up guys, SCJ here, and if you enjoyed today's video, then make sure to give it a like as it helps out a lot, and if you're new to the channel and or enjoy the NBA, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. So last night, the 76ers road trip continued as they were in LA to face the 2020 champions, the LA Lakers. This was a primetime national TV game, and if both teams were healthy, there's a chance this could have been one of the best games we've seen all season, as both teams have been two of the best teams we've seen in the league when they've been healthy. Regardless of that though, the 76ers got the win over the Lakers last night, primarily due to a huge performance out of one of their 2020 free agency signings, Danny Green, as he scored his second highest point total in a game on the season and his second highest number of three-pointers made in a game on the season, with 28 points on 9 for 14 shooting from the field and 8 for 12 shooting from beyond the arc. Green also had 5 rebounds and played good defense as he had 1 steal and 2 blocks in last night's win. Prior to last night's game, Green, along with teammate Dwight Howard, finally received their championships rings from the LA Lakers since they were members of last season's championship team before signing in Philadelphia this previous fall. Hey, maybe that was the reason for Green's impressive performance last night, as he didn't attempt many shots in the Sixers' previous 2 games, and he had the same amount of three-pointers made as he did have shots taken in the team's game against the Knicks this past Sunday night. So like just mentioned, the Sixers got the win as they beat the Lakers, and they beat them by a score of 109-101, and they looked very good in the process, even with their best healthy player, Ben Simmons, only shooting 14% from the field in last night's game. Most fans would see that stat or hear that stat and say, well, clearly the reason the team can still win when their best healthy player shoots bad is because they were playing a very injured Lakers team. And while I will say you are half correct on that if you do say that, when you really take a deep dive into the stats and a deep look, you find out that indeed might not have been the reason for the Sixers' win last night. Last night's win marked the 76ers' 4th straight win, and 3 of those wins have come on the road, and their win against the Knicks came on the second half of a back-to-back. Not only that though, but the 76ers have won 10 of their last 11 games and have won 6 of their last 7 games following Embiid's injury, and their only loss was to an extremely hot Milwaukee Bucks team. They also beat the Wizards in the game where Embiid suffered his injury. So this team is truly playing very good basketball right now, even without Embiid, and it's time we talk about why, especially when Joel Embiid was putting up numbers that we haven't statistically seen since Shaquille O'Neal was in his prime with the Lakers and had Kobe Bryant by his side. If we look at some of the traditional stats here, in the 7 games following Embiid's injury, the 76ers have the 14th ranked offense, so nothing to really scoff at or be impressed by. They also have the 13th ranked field goal percentage over the past 7 games as well. We also know Ben Simmons is not a good shooter, so their 3-point numbers are mediocre at best, as they sit exactly middle of the pack in the league for the most threes made. But they are top 10 in 3-point percentage with 39.3% shooting, and we're going to get back to why a little bit later in this video. However though, in terms of free throws, once again, they haven't been good at all, as they have the 6th least amount of free throws made and the literal worst free throw percentage in the entire league over their past 7 games, or the 7 games since Embiid went down. The main reason for that is Ben Simmons has been getting to the line over 5 times per game and shooting a putrid 51.5% from the line. So besides their 3-point percentage, pretty much everything I showed you guys has been terrible. So what gives? Am I trying to troll you guys with this video and show you that they're playing bad teams, or show you why Embiid deserves MVP? No, you're about to see why this team has been able to still play very good basketball without Embiid, and I figured it'd be nice to get out the bad before the good, or just throw some of you guys off a bit. So from what I just showed you, you can see that ever since Embiid's injury, while the 76ers offense hasn't been great, which should be expected with how great and historic of a season that Embiid was having, they haven't needed their offense to be great. Coach Doc Rivers has had his team playing together as a complete unit and really playing the most fundamental basketball we've seen from the Sixers in years. The 76ers have been boxing out and doing a great job of securing the glass even without Joel Embiid, who's one of the best forces down low in the league and will probably go down in history as one of the best glass cleaners and rim protectors of all time. The 76ers have averaged just 0.7 less rebounds per game than the Milwaukee Bucks, and that should be a huge thing to you when you realize just how hot the Bucks have been lately and the fact that the Bucks have won 8 straight games. So rebounding nearly identical to them without having your best player during said team's winning streak should be impressive. A big reason for that is the 76ers have 4 different players averaging over 5 rebounds per game since Embiid's injury, including center Tony Bradley, who has filled in great for them ever since Embiid went down against the Wizards in Washington. In terms of assists, they're the 10th worst team there, but like mentioned earlier, that should be expected with the fact that their offense hasn't been great, and that really hasn't seemed to affect them though whatsoever. In terms of being physical and a tough team, though, like we just mentioned with their rebounding and physicality on the glass, the 76ers are just 0.3 steals away from leading the league in the most steals per game since Embiid's injury. In terms of blocks, though, they've been protecting the rim tremendously, so much that they've been the best team in the league in terms of rim protection, and they're leading the league with 7 blocks per game ever since JoJo's injury. A huge reason for that is some of the 76ers guards, yes, you heard me right, guards, are blocking insane right now. Danny Green and Matisse Thybulle, as well as Dwight Howard, are all averaging 1.3 blocks per game since Embiid's injury. That is insane to me, honestly. Then in terms of efficiency, they have been the second most efficient team in the league since Embiid went down, as they have the plus-minus rating of exactly 11 per game and sit in the second place spot behind the Milwaukee Bucks team that, like mentioned before, is playing insane right now. So the fact that the only team in front of you is a hot team riding a 7-game win streak and currently holding the second seed in the Eastern Conference right behind the 76ers is extremely impressive and shows you that even if they're not the best team in that regard, the team's best player is injured and they're still sitting in some great company, to say the least. So remember before how I said they had a mediocre offense as they sit in 14th place in the league with 112.1 points per game since Embiid went down? Yeah, well, it's time to go even deeper into why it hasn't bothered them in the slightest. You also remember how I said Doc had them playing physical and fundamental lately? Yeah, well, you're about to see another example of that right now. Following Embiid's injury, the 76ers are giving up the least amount of points per game in the entire league, as their opponents are only averaging an insanely low 101.1 points per game. That's absolutely crazy, and something crazier is that every single team in the league is averaging more points per game than that on the season, and you can see that here. And like mentioned before about their own plus-minus on offense, the 76ers are forcing their opponents to play with the second worst plus-minus rating in the league since Embiid's injury, and also a lower plus-minus rating than any team has averaged this season, which is also crazy to me. The team is also causing their opponents to shoot the worst shooting percentage in quite literally every single shooting category. Yes, field goal percentage, three-point percentage, and free throw percentage. It shouldn't be surprising after hearing that, but the Sixers' opponents have made the least amount of field goals, threes, and free throws in that span also. So, yeah, I guess we could say they're playing tremendous defense, to say the least. Their opponents are also grabbing the 7th least amount of rebounds, blocking the 4th least shots per game, and the team is playing that great defense without fouling, as their opponents are drawing the 3rd least amount of fouls per game. Crazy stuff and defense that we're seeing from the Sixers team lately, even without their best player. This shouldn't be too surprising, especially with the fact that they have the 2nd best defensive rating for the whole season and only trail the Lakers by 0.4 points for the whole season in that area. But since Embiid's injury, the 76ers have the best defensive rating in the entire league, and they have that by a huge margin, as you can see here. What also shouldn't be surprising with how well they've rebounded, like I said earlier, is they're allowing their opponents to get the least amount of second chance points since Embiid's injury also, proving that if teams do miss a shot attempt when playing the Sixers, they better get back on defense because there's a small chance that the possession will be extended any longer. So after what I've shown you in this video, I'm sure we can all say the 76ers have played tremendous, not only this season, but even without Embiid following his injury. But is there a real reason behind why they are playing so well, due to maybe chemistry issues with Embiid or going forward beyond their great defense that we looked at? Well, I'll leave you guys with this. If you've been a basketball fan for at least 3 years, then you might remember the 76ers' first round series in the 2018 playoffs against the Miami Heat. The 76ers ended up winning that series and gave the Heat a gentleman's sweep with a 4-1 series victory. The team also had Embiid for only 3 of the games in that series, yet they performed very well against the 6th-seeded Heat, who had just got the veteran leadership and play of legend Dwayne Wade. And the reason they soundly handed the Heat, even without Embiid for multiple games in that series, a loss, was truly Simmons getting more touches and being able to do his own thing. In that series, Simmons averaged 18.2 points, 10.6 rebounds, and exactly 9 assists and a superb 2.4 steals per game. What the 76ers also have that they had back then are players and good shooters who also have the ability to stretch the floor with their shooting. They had guys like Redick, Covington, Bellinelli, Ilyasova, Saric, etc., who were all guys who could knock down big shots when Simmons got them an open look. And with how great of a passer Simmons is, that ended up being very often, and the 9 assists he averaged in that series proved that. Since Embiid's injury, this team has felt very similar to that 2018 Philadelphia team when Embiid was out, at least to me that is. Since Embiid's injury, the 76ers have had 8 guys attempting 2.9 or more threes per game, and 5 of those 8 guys are averaging at least 1 three-pointer made per game. So if you really want to know why they're playing so well, even without the man most NBA fans and probably most writers had winning this season's regular season MVP award, it seems like the comparison to the 2018 Sixers that I just gave, as well as the stats that I've shown in this video before about their defense, are the reasons why this team has looked and said, no Embiid? Well, no problem. I want to know, though, what you guys have thought about the 76ers' level of play since Embiid's injury, the team's defense lately, or anything having to do with the 76ers down below in the comment section. Like mentioned before, though, if you liked the video, then make sure to give it a like as it helps out a lot. And if you're new to the channel and or enjoy the NBA, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. That way you stay up to date with my newest content. Anyway, though, guys, I'm SCJ, and I am out. Peace.